morning, Keeper League fans. It is week 2 of the RCKFFL, and here are your fantasy previews. The first game features the 1-0 Victorville Vampires against the 1-0 Kathmandu Yeti. Both of these teams are leading their division after 1 week. Victorville posted a first week 1,200 plus score as they handled a surprisingly tough Conks team, beat them 12-29 to 9-21. They'll take on the Yeti this week, who are leading the North. They notched their first win of the year over the Denver Dictators, 862 to 643, so that was a pretty easy win as well. Vampires got a pair of 200-plus efforts from Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson. They continue to be the workhorses for the team. They had 6 other players score 95-plus with a solid effort from the defense, so Victorville cruised to an easy victory. The Yeti, their main man was Matt Ryan. He led the team with 236 points. Looks like he's in for a bounce-back year from last season. No other Yeti starter eclipsed 100-plus, though, and the defense posted a pretty mediocre 260, so they're going to need to get that defense cranked up if they're going to be able to win in this game. The experts are predicting a Vampire win this week, as all of the Victorville offensive starters are projected to break 100-plus this week. Historically, this has been a close series, high-scoring affair. In fact, the winning score in 8 of the last 10 meetings has been in excess of 885, so these teams are going to need to put some points up on the board if they want to win. Last year it was Victorville taking the game 887 to 828. Lifetime, this series is even at 5-5. The next game features the Cabo San Lucas Cutlass, who are 1-0. They'll be taking on the Shanghai Scoundrels, who are 0-1. The Cutlass lit up the scoreboard in week 1, took care of business against the Studs and put up 1,000 points. Meanwhile, their opponent this week, Shanghai, they are dealing with the post-Peyton Manning era, and their first effort was not a good one. They lost to the Cripplers last week, 752 to 583. Cutlass got contributions from all over the field. 6 players scored in triple digits. Led by Le'Veon Bell, he cracked 200-plus. Sean Sweezum put out 140, and the linebacking core, 2 combined for 225 points. It was a perfect lineup for Coach McKinney. He didn't make any mistakes. The Scoundrels actually could have won last week, but they would have had to make a slew of different lineup changes to have gotten the win, at least 5. Their starters offered them a pair of 100-plus, led by the kicker Ryan Suckup. You know it's a bad game when your kicker's your leading scorer, and Carson Palmer with 135. The real problem was the combination of Doug Martin and Bernard Pierce, who scored just 19 points from the running back position, and Zach Brown scored a 0 on the week as well. There wasn't a lot of help on the bench at running back, so they're going to have to hope that somebody steps up here and takes control of that running back position. Interestingly enough, though, the projections see this game going to the Scoundrels. They expect a bounce-back week from Demaryius Thomas, and they're projecting a big week from quarterback Jake Locker. We'll see if that happens. It also predicts a fall-off defensively from the Cutlass linebackers, and that could be the difference in the ballgame. Since 2006, the winner in this series has always been 800-plus, and last season the two teams combined to score 2,195 points against one another, so look for another high-scoring affair from them this week. It was Shanghai winning the game last year, 1,111 to 1,084, and lifetime this series is also even at 5 apiece. Next up, let's talk about Annapolis. They're 1-0. They're taking on the Key West Conks, who fell to 0-1. The Armada used a strong opening salvo to sink the Mayans 855 to 570. They'll turn their attention to a team that looks a lot more formidable this week in the Conks. Key West played a good game in week 1, but they ran into a buzzsaw in the Vampires, and they lost 1229 to 921. But if you're scoring 900 plus consistently, you're going to have a good season. Annapolis had 5 players reach the 95-point mark, led by Jay Cutler and Matt Forte, who both cleared 125. The defense was a little average, though, and the loss of linebacker Derek Johnson for the year is not going to help that effort going forward. The Conks may have finally put together a defense that won't be an absolute disgrace on the field. Their defenders totaled 395 for the week last week, and that, along with 177 from Andrew Luck, they could have beaten all but 2 teams in week 1. They just happened to run into the wrong one. Projections for this game are very close. Odds makers say the offensive strength of Annapolis is going to edge out the defensive power of the Conks. We shall see. The Armada have won 4 out of the last 5 in the series, and over that same stretch, the Conks have failed to score more than 622 3 times. Key West cannot afford to score that poorly and hope to have a chance to win. Last season, Annapolis took the game 667 to 588. Lifetime, it is the Armada 6-5 over Key West. Carolina and Manitoba, battle of a pair of 1-0 teams. These teams will square off here in Week 2 after Carolina used a couple of big games from Andy Dalton and Jeremy Macklin last week, both over 170, to take down the Mob 805 to 720. They also left a couple of 100 points on the bench, so Coach Marcus has to be feeling good about the depth on this team. The Cripplers got a big defensive effort despite getting a 0 from Jonathan Cyprian. The rest of the defense totaled 310, and that, along with Russell Wilson's 137 and a rather poor showing from the Scoundrels, was enough to cover up for bad performances from Jamal Charles and Alshon Jeffrey. The experts are leaning towards the Cripplers in this one, in part because of the questionable status of running back D'Angelo Williams and the injury to linebacker Jamie Collins, who looks like he's going to be out for the game this week. Games between these two squads are usually low-scoring slobber knockers. In fact, over the previous 11 games, the two teams have combined to score more than 900 points only one time. Last season, it was Manitoba 874 to 842, the narrowest of margins, and lifetime it is the Cripplers 7-4 over Carolina. That brings us to 1-0 Danville taking on 0-1 Multisanti. The Demons pulled off a Houdini act as they narrowly skated by the Warriors in Week 1, 768 to 758. Their opponent this week was not so fortunate as the Mob fell to Carolina 805 to 720. Now, the Demons got a big game out of A.J. Green, and also new quarterback Peyton Manning put up a $149. They needed every point from both of them, though, to cover up what was a pathetic defensive display. Their defense combined to score only 120 points, and 85 points were scored from the defensive bench. So Coach Waz has to be freaking out trying to figure out where he's going to get some defensive points in Week 2. The Mob could actually have won last week had they made better starting lineup choices. Marshawn Lynch was his typical beast self, $157. Kaepernick put in 112, but the injury to Jordan Cameron early in the game and the reliance on a rookie wide receiver ultimately cost them. Well, that and leaving Chris Ivory's 172 on the pine. Despite that performance, though, Coach Romaine will not start Chris Ivory this week. Interesting choice. He's going to go with Sean Green. Odds makers like the Demons in this one as they expect the same duo of Manning and A.J. Green to have monster games and carry the team. Plus, the Demon defense can't be that bad again. Can it? The defense hold the edge in this series by a fairly wide margin, but the two teams have traded off wins in each of the last 7 seasons. If the Demons can put up a win this week, they'll make it 2 in a row for either team for the first time since 2008. Danville, they won last year 874 to 840, another close game, and lifetime it is Danville 8-3 over the Mob. They have dominated this series. Next up, the Studs and the Dictators, both at 0-1. Disappointing starts for both teams. The Studs fell to the Cutlass 1010 to 840, while Denver fell victim to the Yeti 862 to 643. The Studs got a huge defensive effort. They tallied 415 as a team on defense. It's usually a recipe for success unless your offense takes the week off. None of their offensive weapons exceeded 91 points on the week. Aaron Rodgers, Eric Decker, and Deshaun Jackson in particular were fairly disappointing. Denver followed a similar path. I thought their defense was not nearly as good as the Studs. At a combined 315, the defense led by Bobby Wagner and Eric Berry could be competitive, but no one on offense exceeded 80 points, and 4 of the 5 failed to reach 50 points. When that happens consistently, you're going to lose. A perfect lineup would have gotten Denver a tie, interestingly enough, and Coach Wolf did make a change as he'll insert Cordarrelle Patterson into his starting lineup, taking the place of Michael Crabtree. Experts are expecting to see a win from Denver this week, but the projections are for a low-scoring affair. So a big game from a single player on either side could make the difference. The Studs got their first ever win over Denver last year, and they're going to look to make it 2 in a row. but they haven't scored more than 793 points in a game ever against Denver. Again, last year, Saskatchewan 793 to 740. Lifetime goes to Denver at 3-1. That brings us to the last game of the week. This is the 0-1 Mayans versus the 0-1 Bangladesh Warriors. The Mayans and Warriors obviously fell victim in week 1. The Maniacs fell to the Armada. The Warriors lost to the Demons by 10. It was a heartbreaking loss for the Warriors. The Maniacs had only 2 players show up. Antonio Brown and Drew Brees both popped 100 points, but the rest of the starters were disappointing, and the defense only put up 120 points. That's a recipe for disaster. Despite the poor play, Coach Wolf is making no lineup changes. He's going to go and demand that he gets better play from his starting lineup. The Warriors and Coach Chorba, they can't help but to have second-guessed themselves all week this week. They had 4 legitimate opportunities to get the win with a single lineup change. Any of 4 changes would have given them the win. Nick Foles continues to shine, led the team with 167, and Michael Floyd is quickly becoming the best wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, overshadowing Larry Fitzgerald. Michael Floyd has really put on an offensive display in the last 8 weeks of last year and starting out this year. Outside of Carlos Dansby, though, the defense struggled. They amassed only 240 points on the week, and the bench wasn't full of a lot of standout defensive efforts either. So their starters are going to need to step up this week. The Warriors are heavy favorites in this one according to the projections. Odds makers like Foles and the newly inserted No Sean Moreno to make the difference. They expect the Mayan defense to continue to struggle. The Warriors have won 4 straight in this series, and over that 4-game span, the Mayans have failed to score more than 690. If that happens again this week, you can expect that losing streak to rise to 5. Last season, Bangladesh 623 to 600 winners in a low-scoring affair. Lifetime, it's Bangladesh 6-4. Good luck to everybody this week. We'll talk to you again next week.